I'm an artist. You're an artist.
So here we have another landscape. And remember, landscapes are just a view of the world outside, usually in a work of art like this one. But we have different zones of landscape paintings that we can talk about. So the first one of those is the one that's the closest to us. So take a look here and notice what objects you think look like they're the closest to you. So we might notice these big leaves here in the front, maybe some of those plants that you see on the right-hand side of the bottom. All of this is what we call the foreground. It's the foreground that's the closest part to you. So this whole band down here that has this little stream, the rocks along the side here, the water rushing down, all of that is in the foreground. It's the part that's the closest to you. The next part we have is the middle ground. As you might have guessed, it's in the middle. So we've got all of this section here. So notice what you see in that middle area. We have some trees here. We've got these people. They're really small. They're a little bit hard to see because they're so small. And they look smaller because they're supposed to be farther away, right? We know that when we look outside and we see something that's really far away, sometimes it looks really small to our eyes. So those people are smaller because they're meant to look farther away. So all of that section there where you're seeing the field here in front of that lake and those people, all of that is in the middle ground. And then the very farthest part, that is called the background because it's way in the back. So some of that stuff can be really far away, like these mountains here. Do you see how they're all kind of misty and foggy? That's how things look when they're really far away, like mountains sometimes do. So all of that area that's the furthest from us, that's the background. So we've got our three zones, the foreground, the middle ground, and the background. So that's just a nice way to kind of organize the way we talk about landscapes. All right, now, just like scientists here, we're going to use our senses to talk about this piece. Now, we can't really use our sense of touch. Even here at the museum, we're not allowed to touch the works of art because the oils in our fingers can damage them, and we want to keep them nice. So we're just going to imagine what things might feel like to our fingers or what things might sound or smell like. So let's take a look at this piece, and I want you to notice what kinds of sounds do you think you would hear in this space? So look all around and imagine you are inside this landscape, you are in the painting, in this scene. What kinds of things do you think you might hear? So take a good look. What do you think you might hear? Well, I think you might hear maybe this dog barking that I can see. Maybe you would hear the water rushing over the rocks and falling into this little stream here. Maybe you could hear some rumbling thunder in the distance. So all of those things you might hear if you were in this place. What about things that you might smell? Do you think you could maybe smell that kind of chill that's in the air a little bit? Maybe you could smell the fresh leaves or the grass. What about things that you could touch? If you were in this scene, do you notice some things that might feel a certain way? So we call that texture when we're talking about a work of art. So if we think about the texture of, let's say, the stones here along the river, those might be smooth over time, right? After all of that time with the water running against them. What about the roughness of the bark on a tree? Or the kind of bumpiness of these leaves here and maybe the veins on the bottom of them. So all of those different textures are things that we could touch if we were really in a place like this. So scientists and artists, we both use our senses all the time. So now we want to talk about what else is going on in this scene. So again, we're going to put on our scientist hats, and I want you to think about where erosion might be happening in a scene like this one. We've already talked about erosion and what that is. So where do you think erosion might be happening here? So let's pause and discuss. Where could erosion be happening in a scene like this? Well, erosion might be happening here in this area where the water is rushing over the rocks in this river. So that might be moving some different particles to different places, right? So there's probably some silt and some pieces of dirt or rocks that are moving along with that water. And where is that being deposited? So where is deposition happening? Remember, that's where those particles are settling. So where is that happening? Well, if we look closely, we might see on the bottom here of this riverbank, there's some rocks right along the edge. So maybe those were rocks that were deposited from after going over that little fall there. We can also see this dead tree limb, right? So that's fallen from a tree, maybe as a result of weathering. Maybe that was after a storm. And maybe that fell down. It looks like it's been deposited here. And it might even fall over that ledge into the water and get deposited somewhere else later. But deposition is happening all through this scene too. But we can see where there's movement, especially like the movement of the water here, that's causing erosion and deposition to happen all throughout this scene.